Stay tuned for Butler on Business, coming up next on the Liberty Express.
Jason, would you please introduce Michael to our listeners?
Yeah, Alan, recently immigration has been a hot topic in the news here in Georgia, especially. A federal judge ruled that part of Georgia's immigration law is unconstitutional and blocked it from being implemented. The judge ruled that the law could not penalize people who transported illegal immigrants and that the local authorities were not authorized to verify immigration status. Now, these civil liberty groups have brought the suit, and now we have on the phone with us Michael Wilds, who is an immigration lawyer at the New York-based immigration law firm Wilds and Weinberg.
Michael, how you doing today?
Very well. How are you, gentlemen?
All right. Thanks for calling. Are you up in New York?
I'm up in New Jersey. We have an office both in New York and New Jersey, but we're very curious what's happening in the great state of Georgia.
Now, do you like or dislike Georgia's immigration law?
Well, I have to tell you, I don't get it. I'm a second-generation immigration lawyer. My dad was John Lennon's immigration lawyer in the 70s, so we have a very good sense, and I was a mayor of a city, of the challenge we face with national security and policing people locally, with the xenophobia that's been created post 9/11, and truthfully, the deafening silence in our elected officials in Washington who are too scared in the knees to make any changes in the local states then that have to deal with the challenges of immigration, of people who would abscond, commit crimes, or taking jobs from Americans. So I understand the different competing interests. I do not want to create a police state where people who have accents or who look differently will be stopped by police officers. So any local initiative by police to enforce immigration is doomed because they don't have the forensic ability or the resources to let alone to do their job, let alone understand federal immigration law. How is a police officer in Georgia to know that a person who applies for asylum does not have to have a document until the government sends them a document? And bottom line, this is all preempted by federal law. So even if Washington is doing nothing, it doesn't create a vacuum where the states can walk in and do something.
What would you recommend they do here in Georgia? I know one of the, I don't know if it was intended or unintended consequences, but because of the law, we've lost a lot of the migrant workers, and now our farmers have crops rotting in the fields.
I mean, whatever corridor of our nation you face, whether it's hospitality, agriculture, fashion, throughout the United States, we're getting this wrong. We have right now a tremendously challenged economy. There are people in restaurants that can't move meals. There are farmers who can't move crops. And if we don't understand that the national DNA that we have of immigration is there to help us, not hurt us, then we're going to allow all the xenophobes, the Fox Newses, and everybody else who deteriorates the dialogue to rule the roost. We need to get this right. Yes, we should punish those who abscond and have a day in court. We should punish those that commit crimes. But those individuals who would work hard and make a better product and increase not only our revenue in our state, local, and federal treasuries, but ensure that there's Social Security and a better product for this nation to go forward is the cure. And that we're not getting. So, to answer your question in simple speak, we have to put people to work who would want to work. The more enfranchisement we do, the greater employment opportunities. I see it from foreign students, from foreign investors, and companies that are setting up in the United States. Take the soccer team, for example. They have over 20 people employed, most of them U.S. citizens. And this is a foreign entrepreneur that started a U.S. soccer team. So, the more effort you put into something, the more you're going to reap benefits for citizens and non-citizens. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, you touched on this a second ago, but I was wondering if you could go into a little bit more detail about the nuances between the differences in enforcement at the federal level and the state level enforcing state laws.
Well, first of all, you have a huge farm sector. We have a huge hospitality sector in the New York area. There are different needs, and federal immigration law is designed so that you don't have a tiled mosaic of immigration or patchwork that happens with different enforcement. 268 immigration judges, 7,000 ICE agents, and 20 million people estimated here unlawfully. So there isn't enough handcuffs, airplanes, or beds to house, detain, and remove these individuals, and Congress, by its silence, does not want to touch this because it's a real problem. So, the local enforcement, again, should be relegated to developing relationships with immigrant communities and not diffusing them. by having local police officers now given the vested authority to enforce something that they're not skilled with and can never understand because there's so many shades of gray and nuances, will undermine the relationships. And we see it in the eastern seaboard here, where we have phenomena like stacking, where people are crowded in housing, or in the muster zones, where people have day laborers, where the effect is happening, the silence in Washington has a collateral effect on the local communities. But the way we respond has to remind ourselves always that not only were our founding fathers immigrants themselves, but the way we respond to challenge, even if somebody's wrong, it doesn't mean that we can justify our actions. And by no means is what's happening in Georgia, for that matter, in Arizona and other states, acceptable, even if they feel they're working within the parameters of immigration law.
Let me ask you this. How would you reform the immigration? I mean, for example, one of the impacts of this, and I understand both sides of the immigration debate, but by signing this legislation, Georgia farmers suddenly found themselves 11,000 workers short.
Amazing, isn't it? I mean, you have crops like blueberries and onions that are worth millions of dollars that have no one to pick them. And, it was our past president, and I'm a Democrat, I'm a former Democratic mayor, and this past president got it. This current president that we have is putting a Band-Aid on a cancer that can no longer exist, and it's a very dangerous experience. And it's rapidly deteriorating and getting worse. We have to make it better. Georgia is a beautiful state, and the truth be told, any person that is now being chased out of Georgia is going to go to another state is to the advantage of another state.
Well, Michael, let me ask you this, again, because I appreciate both sides of the argument. I don't want to see the illegal immigrants forced to leave. I know several. I mean, I like them. I want to see them stay. On the one hand, I think for a lot of citizens here and across the country, they get frustrated that you have many who don't pay into the system but get the benefits of the system. How would you reform immigration to try to handle this problem that we have?
Let's look at our brothers and sisters of other democracies throughout the world and pull the lens back, even though we're on the radio.
All right.
We're talking about nations that recognize that they have point systems, for example. If you went to the top flight 50 universities throughout the world, if you're bilingual, if you're free of crime, if you have special skills, those are immigration systems that are trying to encourage people to come to the nation rather than us. Look at our forms. When you apply for citizenship, they still want to know whether or not you're a communist, a prostitute, or supported the Nazi Party. We haven't even updated our forms in a generation. So, first things first, when it comes to adjudications, I don't know whether or not they split immigration up properly. The guys with the guns are on one side and the guys with the brains on another side. No. I think we have to understand that we need to reunify families. We need to stand as a competitor economically, and we need to really shore up our nation's security. With all the stupid dialogue out there when it comes to whether or not illegals should have driver's licenses, you can still travel domestically on an airplane with an expired foreign passport, the very instrumentality of the World Trade Center. So when it comes to effectively dealing with immigration and legitimate homeland security, we need to pick up examples like our brothers and sisters in Israel. You go into an airport, you'll never see a tarmac. You have a young, vigilant customs service, and Homeland Security doesn't start on the tarmac. It starts miles before the airport. So we really need to address the problem proactively rather than reactively. We have underwear bombers, shoe bombers. We have, thank God, good citizens from the lacrosse, from the rugby team that saved the White House on 9/11, to wonderful citizens today, who notice stupid bombs being made and diffused in Times Square. And without the vigilance of police officers and the partnership between immigrant communities and police officers, you don't want to turn cops looking for illegals, because that will undermine the basics not only of the gentlemanliness of our nation, truthfully, but the legacy of law enforcement and public service.
Now, what is your argument to the people that say they're here illegally, they're breaking our laws? How do you answer?
No doubt they broke the law, but it is not a crime to maintain it. The breaking of the law and coming in illegally or overstaying is actionable, but the maintaining of yourself under the current laws is not a crime. Now, that's a lot of, doublespeak from a former politician and a current lawyer. But the truth is, you're right. when a person is bootstrapped into a safe ground having entered or overstayed illegally, it doesn't smell right. Well, okay, why don't we punish that group? If we're going to say now we got it wrong and we're going to create a new immigration law and we're never going to let this happen, these individuals, maybe they can never vote, or maybe these individuals have to pay an excessive fine. But it's completely unacceptable to say with 7,000 ICE agents, 268 judges, that we're going to leave 20 million people in hiatus when they could be picking crops in Georgia.
All right. Are you saying it's a crime to enter the country illegally, but not necessarily a crime to be here illegally?
Absolutely. And those semantics, you know, we have a dry ground rule with Cuba, but we can interdict Haitians in international waters. Those political dichotomies are replete in immigration law, which has had a Band-Aid kind of fixing in the last 100 years. They got to do it right. And it means sometimes that people will bootstrap themselves into safe ground, but, you know, our founding fathers, you know, had to fight pirates in the 1700s. And if we have to put this war on terrorism in the history books for a 50, 60, 70-year war, immigration is one of those tools that will end it. I have to tell you, I'm a Democrat, and it breaks my heart to see a president who made so many overtures and promises to a community, to a constituency that's working hard to change in the military and in the world, so many different things, that he's turned his back on this community, that there's doublespeak coming from the Justice Department and Homeland Security on the gay matter when it comes to immigration enforcement, that there is just, again, the effort of going after employers rather than the individuals. But this is not the economy and time to go punish employers. It was President Reagan in 1986 who shifted the responsibility from the government to employers to police immigration when he at the same time created an amnesty. But it is completely inappropriate in a recession for a president to then try to look strong on the war on terrorism by punishing employers for not doing the government's job on immigration. That is completely wrong. And if this president doesn't get it, if his administration doesn't get it, party be damned, it is the wrong thing as America.
Michael, why does it take 7-8 years for somebody that's entered here legally to become a citizen? Why so long?
There's only two ways of getting status in this nation. It's either based on a family relationship that's statutory, a husband, a child, not even brothers and sisters will happen for 15, 20 years, or based on a sponsorship of employment. If you don't have academic controls, if you're not distinguished in a certain area, you kind of fall in between. So the only way that people can get out of it is under grandfathering laws that would allow people who either marry citizens, and then it puts a big strain on our government to discern whether or not this is a legitimate relationship. Look, 55 years since my dad started this thing, all we do is immigration. We do it throughout the United States. But if I go to Nevada like I did last month, and I don't believe that a marriage is real, I won't take the case because I don't want to mar my grandfather's name, forget my dad. The bottom line is that immigration has not changed itself, despite the computers and the synergy and the symmetry that they have with Homeland Security and being able to fix all the Band-Aids that they put on before and after 9/11. We are not moving efficiently into the next generation. And it's important for us to look for unskilled workers to get permanent residency as much to pick the blueberries in Georgia as it is to move meals on the tables of restaurants in Manhattan.
Michael, you've been a great guest. I hope you will allow us to call you again. I have some more questions for you, but we got another guest coming in right behind you.